Good afternoon, and welcome to Jeff and the Rabbi. Well, have you ever noticed that what's morally correct in today's world seems to change every week? I was reading a friend's Facebook post the other day where this girl that I know went on a long diatribe about how we all need to get on board with the moral values of today. We must accept what is right in contemporary society and not stick to the old values of yesterday. Well, if I don't ever watch CNN, how the heck am I supposed to know what's acceptable this month? Do I still idolize Bill Clinton because he never had sex with that woman? Or do I hate Slick Willie because now we remember that he abused his female intern and that's now considered bad? Hashtag Clinton too. When I was a kid, if a boy in my class wore a dress, he was either Scottish or he was in the drama club. Today, he will be showering with your daughter and be the star of the cross-country team, the girls' cross-country team. In my youth, college campuses professed the moralities of honesty, justice, and integrity. Today, our leading universities affirm sensitivity, uniformity, and adequateness. How can right and wrong change by political election? Should there not be a set of some values that stand the test of time and progressivism? Don't you wish that God would have thought of this way back when and actually given the people some rules that perpetually apply? Maybe even etched one or two of them up on, maybe the top 10 of them up on a rock or two. He could have given these rules to the people. He could have given these rules to a people that would protect them and teach them to the world. Maybe the Baptists or the Lutherans or even that weird spaceship cult that Tom Cruise and John Travolta made famous. Or he could have gone and given them to the chosen people. But until that time, I guess we just have to wait for the leaders of today's progressive community to tell us what's good and bad. I couldn't imagine that group of pink girly part hat wearing sophisticados would ever lead us down a dangerous path of nefarious depravity. So, Rabbi, is there any source out there?
I was waiting for my call.
Oh no, it just took me a minute.
Yeah.
Is there any source out there that us Jews can rely on that can guide us through the ever-changing moral relevancy of today's 24-hour news cycle culture?
So, guess what? I guess what my response will be? A one-word response?
What's that?
Come on, you can guess. One word.
Torah?
Oh, no. He got it again. He got it again.
I should have thought of that before I started this whole thing. There is a source, is what you're saying.
Yes, every time nailed it. So, I'm going to look no further.
Okay.
Then this week's Torah portion. You know, we Jews have the Torah divided up. We read one portion a week, and at the end of the year,
it's this week's portion.
Yeah, at the end of the year, we all finished up, and this week we happen to be reading about a man named Korach. Korach was an evil guy. Evil guy. I call him evil guy because he challenged Moses. Now, the truth is, maybe he really wasn't evil. Maybe we really have to understand where he was coming from.
He could have had a bad childhood, too.
Absolutely. And you know, the truth is, he did have a bad childhood. He had been passed over for appointments by Moshe. He had been, Moses and Aaron seemed to be taking everything for themselves. Korach was a man of the people. He was standing up for them, for their cause. There's a lot to be understood. In other words, nowadays we'd write books would be like Korach Revisited, right?
Absolutely.
The contemporary take on the Korach you thought you knew, and so on and so forth, right? Because nowadays the idea is that we don't necessarily call anything evil.
Nothing is evil.
Right? Now, of course, if you read the Torah portion, the Torah, Moses calls him evil. And not only that, Moses says, I'll tell you what, I want Korach dead. And not only do I want him dead, I want him dead in a way that no one ever died before.
I didn't know Moses brought that. That was Moses who brought that.
Moses called that when he dialed in. Moses called in an airstrike on him.
Okay,
He said, God, I want him dead. And he says to the people, if he dies, that won't prove anything. He's got to die in such a way that no one ever saw anyone die like that before. Then you'll know that I'm not making this stuff up. I'm following orders, and God thinks he's bad. Sure enough, the earth opens up, swells up Korach. He had all kinds of supporters, 250 guys that signed up on his cause.
His Facebook page.
They all get burnt up. Okay, then he's got some other supporters. They all get swallowed up. Then the people all start crying as, oh no, everyone's getting killed. They get killed too. Like everyone's getting killed all over the place. Okay, and God wants everyone. And then God says, maybe I'll just kill y'all. And then Moshe said, no, you can't do that. The idea of all this story is that when the Torah identifies evil, the evil is evil. The good is good and the evil is evil. As a matter of fact, we even have a rule in the Talmud that tells us in any story, if you have an evil character, you can ascribe anything evil to that person's intentions. Like anytime you have an evil character and he does something, even if it looks good, it probably was evil. And when you have a good character, even when it looks bad, look inside it deeper. It really was a good motivation.
So you can apply all this to Balaam and all these people, because sometimes you're looking at it, it doesn't look that bad.
Seem to be doing like a nice thing? No. So if the evil guy helped the little old lady across the road, we presume that he wanted to rip off her purse, right?
Makes sense.
Okay, and if the good guy seems to have been stuck in some type of like morally compromising situation, we say he really had some noble intent. Now, why do we do that? Because God wants there to be an idea that there is good and there is evil, and that those two things, if we're always looking to find the evil in the good or the good in the evil, then you've hamstrung yourself, and nothing will ever be good or evil, and no one will ever be able to make a clear-cut decision.
Which sounds like kind of where we are today.
Right. Now, don't think that this is really a new situation. Nothing's really new.
Okay.
King Solomon said, nothing new under the sun.
Right.
Where do you go back to when you want to talk good and evil? If you really want to go back, you got to go all the way back. The garden.
To the garden, okay.
Back to it always goes back to the garden. It always goes back to the tree.
Right.
It always goes back to eating from the fruit, Adam and Eve, and all that. The name of the tree that they're not supposed to eat from is?
Of knowledge.
The tree of knowledge.
Not good of evil.
Right, no, that's right. So everyone always will usually tell you, what's the name of the tree? They're not supposed to eat from the tree of knowledge. The truth is, they were not supposed to eat from the tree of knowledge, good and evil.
Right.
That's its full name. It's called the tree of knowledge, good and evil. The problem with the tree of knowledge, good and evil, is that it makes good look evil and evil look good. It mixes up the two.
Wow.
Before Adam ate from the tree, there was evil in the world, but there was good in the world. And we can live in a world of good and evil. And you can live in a world with lots of evil, as long as you know what good is.
Right.
But as soon as you don't know the difference between good and evil, even a little bit of evil just wrecks the whole world. So, for example, you can have Nazis running wild, killing millions of people, if they are clearly identified as evil. If there's evil in the world, and people are going to, let's say, go fight them, the good cause,
Right.
okay, then the world could be like awash with evil, but it still is a healthy place.
Right, because we know.
If you don't have that, then every person is good is presumed to really be maybe his good is his evil, and his evil is his good, and then the world is going down the tubes. I just think back to myself as a child.
Right.
When I was a kid, I used to watch a lot of war movies and westerns, and people were getting shot.
Back then, did they have talkies, or were these?
Yeah, right.
Might have been a while ago. I wasn't sure.
Yeah, until I could read, I didn't know what was going on, right?
Right.
So the people were getting killed all the time.
Yeah.
People were getting shot all the time. They didn't bleed so much in those days when they got shot. They get like a spot on their clothing or something. Right, yeah, right. They fall back and all that. But, so we watched all this. We watched guns and people being killed all the time. I don't recall. I didn't grow up to buy guns. It wasn't a thing. But what happened? the reason was, I believe, is that in those films they had a certain morality to them. There were good people.
Very
there were
clear
bad
back
people.
then. Very clear.
Yeah, and the bad people were bad.
Yep.
And even if they killed the good guys, like John Wayne would get killed now and then,
They would.
you know,
They would.
but still, like, you know, it was because that's what evil does in this world. So you walked away from it, and you didn't want to go get a gun and go kill a bunch of people. You know?
It was pretty clear back then.
Yeah,
These guys are good. These guys are bad.
that's right. But then, you know, time went on. Well, after a while, you know, you've got like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
Right.
You know, they're actually
point.
they're bandits.
They were bad guys.
They're bad guys.
But
They're
we were
bandits.
rooting for them the whole
They-
time.
They were stuff, but they're so handsome and fun, and we're all with them the whole way, right?
So upset at the end.
Right,
I don't
right.
spoiler alert. I don't want to spoil.
Yeah, right,
They
right.
might have seen that yet.
Right. So, but they were really bad guys. Like they were bandits. They were not nice. No, they took away people's livelihoods and things like that. That's not good.
Bonnie and Clyde killed a lot of people.
Right. But you know, after all, Faye Dunaway, give me a
Faye
break.
Dunaway.
Come on,
You don't want to see
How
her
can you-
die.
You're right. How can you go against Faye Dunaway?
Right.
So and as we go on, we see more and more. Though now we like the movies that ambiguous. You know, the good guy is not really a good guy. All characters are complex. Everyone is complex. Well, yeah, we know that people are complex, but once you say that we just want to be real, everyone has within them good and evil. Now, that's true, but we're not going to get out of the mess unless we can define the good and evil. By promoting the fact that everyone is a mixture of good and evil, then the next message is there really isn't good and there really isn't evil.
Or it's up to our interpretation today, or tomorrow. The interpretation might be different.
Absolutely.
And I think that's probably one of the biggest issues now. Is we live in gray. We don't live in black and white.
Right. And it's very interesting because, you know, there are certain things that the society tries to call evil, like molesters or harassers and things like that. You know, certainly evil. But generally, when we look around, we want to try to understand the causes, seek to understand, which is true. But you can only seek to understand if you have established a framework of good and evil.
Right.
And our society doesn't establish a framework of good and evil. We don't teach our history, that there were good people or evil people. We certainly don't believe that we or our country was good, our country was perhaps evil, in which case, why would anyone want to promote it? Why would you want to stand up for it? Why would you want to defend it? You focus on all the evil that people did, but in the same time, then you don't really give any credit for any of the good.
Which is happening now with a lot of people with our country. We're an evil country. We owned slaves. We were bad. We didn't let women vote until the 20s. There's a lot of things that we're just evil.
So the Torah is a big good and evil promoter. There are many things in the Torah that it says that certain people have to be put to death. When you read about them having to be put to death, when you really get into the laws, you'll realize that based on the legal system and the laws, they'll never ever prosecute that guy. It's impossible. Why then is the Torah talking about putting people to death?
That's a good question.
There are certain situations where the Talmud asks, did that ever happen? You know, there's a law in the books that a certain child, like a rebellious son, has to be put to death. The Talmud said, did it ever happen? And it's inconclusive whether it actually did happen or not. So why is it on the books? It's important to be on the books as a statement of good and a statement of evil. Or there's another situation in the Torah where they'll say, you should put a certain person to death. And it says, and you shall destroy the evil from your midst. When you execute this person, destroy the evil from your midst. So, nowadays, we agonize over putting someone to death in our legal system. Now, it could be true. If you make a mistake, it's a horrific thing to put someone to death. And the Torah will definitely say, let 100 people off the hook rather than putting an innocent person to death. But if you have someone that really, really is evil and really did an evil thing, and there is no doubt about it, witnessed and everything like that, the execution of that person is a good thing for society. And it's a good for a society to say, this person is evil and should be executed because we reject evil. And it's very important to be able to stand up and reject evil and not even try to understand it.
I mean, like Pincus was hailed as a great man for what he did.
Right. And no one looks into the causes. You're not supposed to look into the cause and justify and understand. We don't seek to understand people who do evil things.
He was eradicating evil, and that was it. So he's good.
That's right. That's right. So we want to say this is good, this is bad. But when we raise our children and our society, the prevalent idea you don't have a clear-cut good and evil, and everything is morally ambiguous, then people will not have a grasp on what is goodness, and therefore people will be evil.
Well, could that then be the intention of some people today that, we want to intentionally make sure that people do not have a grasp on this, and then we may have an evil society. Maybe that is some people's intention.
So there is, I believe, an intentional approach of blurring the lines, because once the lines are blurred, who are you to tell me that what I'm doing is wrong? Maybe you're wrong. So where do you get off telling me that I'm wrong? I do my thing. And of course, once the lines get blurred, and probably you see this in society in general, once you start to blur the lines between good and evil, all lines are blurred between everything.
Well, that's where I was going to ask next. I mean, maybe that is why we are intentionally blurring the lines between man and woman, blurring the lines between good and evil, blurring the lines between everything.
Yeah, young and old. Who's the boss? Who's not? Who's the boss is really just part of the team, and the kids are really the parents, and the parents are the kids, and the men are the women are the men. Animals really have rights, and on and on and on and on.
So these poor children, then today, I guess we actually can't say they're good and evil because it's not their fault now. So wait a minute, now I'm really getting confused. No, but they are being taught that there is not good and evil in this world. It's the way you look at it, the way you perceive it, and that is very dangerous.
Right. So we do believe, we say a blessing every day, and the blessing is one of the blessings, the 18 blessings there's 3 times a day a Jew prays, and the prayer that he says is called the 18 blessings. Mm-hmm. And one of those blessings is for discernment, right? And we ask that God give us the ability to discern that faculty. And we pray for that, because discernment is what it's all about, being able to discern between good and evil and right and wrong. And really, it's important for us, and it's a faculty that doesn't just come naturally, but we really pray to God that He grant us with it. Now, if you have a society that doesn't want to discern or discriminate, sometimes we are supposed to discriminate. We're supposed to be, you want to be a discriminating customer, right? Look for only good quality and all that type of stuff. Well, we are supposed to be able to look and categorize. Now, sometimes, we make mistakes. Sometimes we make broad brush strokes and all that. But the solution is in perhaps better understanding. That's true, but in throwing out the concepts, the very concepts of good and evil, brings in its wake a chaotic approach, which no society can really survive that.
But it sounds like intentionally we're going down that path now of blurring those lines and throwing out good and evil. I mean, not just good and evil, we're throwing out good and bad. We're, as in quality, we're throwing out, this person's better than that person's and more qualified. Well, we're throwing that as well. So the whole society seems to be getting blurred in their lines right now.
That's right.
I guess if you lose the main point of good and evil, you lose the main point of everything.
And merit. We don't necessarily reward based on merit. We reward based on what we think should be some definition of right or wrong, or all those type of things. So but once a society has lost its moorings like that, of course, one thing leads to another. It is true. It is true that a society can start branding good and evil, and then with that broad brushstroke, maybe hurt people that shouldn't be hurt. That's true. The reaction to that is not, however,
Yeah,
to
100%
remove
opposite, right.
all definitions of good and evil, and that's the
We don't want to
the
live in
other
a
direction.
society where you stone people and throw them off of buildings for things that are, perceived good and evil. You want to live in a society that has understanding, but what happens is, you're right, when we go too far the other way, when people say, well, there's no good and evil, there's no right and wrong, it's all blurred, then the
But,
society
well,
can't survive.
there were societies where people paint a whole group of people, the other tribe. The other tribe, they're evil. They have to be killed. Okay, we understand that's a problem. But fundamentally, though, the concepts of good and evil, right and wrong, bad, all these type of things, those are things that are very important to enshrine and not to blur all definitions. Blurring definitions is not the solution, because then people are they don't have a grasp, an innate grasp of what's good and evil, and they will end up doing all kinds of horrific things.
Which happens. Now, do you see how do you turn something like this around?
So being able to say, like, that's bad, this is good, this is bad. Certain things are bad, to be able
Are you
to
even allowed to teach your children that now in society?
Yeah,
Are you allowed to
right.
say, no, that's wrong, that's right? I don't know if you're allowed to do that.
Right. Like those people are bad people. They're not being nice.
I mean, we literally, for an example, MS-13, who is a gang, company, is the epitome of evil. I mean, their motto is rape, torture, and I think there's another one in there too. Something else is bad in rape and torture. I can't remember. They chop up their victims. And all of a sudden, now we have people who say, well, listen, they're immigrants. You're calling these people animals. You're calling, I kind of think when you get to the point where you have any defense of rape, torture, and maim and cutting people up into pieces, then society might be really in trouble. I don't know how you come back. It's all for political reasons, but I don't know how you come back from it.
Yeah, well, that is the road back is to have a guidepost.
So there is something else. So let me get some more
back.
clarity here. You're saying there is something written somewhere
Right.
that we can turn to that gives us more clarity.
Comes back to the old book,
Same old book.
same old one.
Okay.
So therefore,
I cut every one of these. The Torah is sold because
Yes,
you really push it a lot.
every click,
Every click.
fraction of a cent on every click.
I figured there had to be some reason you keep pushing this
Right.
one book.
Right.
Wow.
So therefore a guidebook. So to be able to tell, people once upon a time used to read the Bible.
Yeah.
Entire societies read the Bible. Matter of fact, in many places, that's what people learned to read. The only book they ever had around.
That's true.
They had to read, and the only book to read was the Bible. So along the way, I do recall reading a beautiful article. It was a book written by a woman in the 1850s, and she was bemoaning her children, and because her children were being raised in a modern era where there was no good and evil, with this whole dark type of approach. And she said, we were raised on the Bible and the Bible stories, and that made us good, healthy people. And even though all these people are getting killed in the Bible, like in this week's Torah portion, thousands of people getting killed all over the place, but the people that read it end up having a positive outlook on life.
Wow.
So it's amazing. How does that happen? Because when bad people are getting killed, it gives people a positive outlook on life. You feel good about yourself, about your country, about your beliefs, about when bad people are getting killed. So, but when bad people are not, when evil is not being banished, it makes everyone negative.
Right. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
Huh. For some reason, I'm getting this weird craving for an apple, so I'm gonna have to go. I'm hungry. I don't know what it is. Good stuff.
Okay.
All right. We'll see you next week.
Gotcha.
Jeff the Rabbi.